My daughter's really into it. I like going to her because she can look at people fall. She said, oh, there's another person there. But I don't know where to look and what to look for. Sorry to mix up your slides. Okay. Now, the more I thought about it, the better I liked it than the way you had it. Because that's the most dramatic thing, how that has grown to. I was going to sit here close to the DS.
We're gonna go at least connect with Jim.
So is it going to be are we going to be a working dinner or are we going to eat first? Okay, while we're still there. I'm going to get started so that I don't have food still on my plate. Well, what we did, we went the next one. And we did mission. Nope. Actually worked out better. The next night was our actual anniversary. We had moved to town and Alan would go out of town. And then that got canceled. So it worked out. I heard. I'm happy with the way it ended up. Well, that slide is the most dramatic and evident and I run my bike through that.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry to interrupt your lovely conversations at your tables, but I want to make sure that we leave plenty of time for dialogue at the end. So I'm going to get us started, and please do keep eating, go back for more. I think we had 55 or so people registered and ordered that much food, and they sent food for 250 people. So please go back and eat more food, because Lucy and Emily and I cannot eat all of that tomorrow for lunch. I'm going to open us with a word of prayer and then walk through our goals for the evening. So would y'all join me in prayer? Gracious and generous God, we gather tonight with gratitude in our hearts. We're grateful for your faithful, regular provision of everything that we need. We are grateful for the cloud of witnesses you've called to this place for generations, people who have modeled love in this church and in the world, people who have taught us and cared for us and paved the way for us. We are grateful for the example of our Lord, the one perfect person who ever lived, who taught us to do justice and love kindness and walk forward in humility. We are grateful for the grace of that Lord, even when we fall short. We are grateful that you continue to use us, to call us to be a people of love. Grateful that you set a path in front of us and call us to fix our eyes on you and run together in joy. Bless this food and all the hands that prepared it. Bless this time and the conversation we will share this evening. We pray these things in Christ's holy name. Amen. So you have on your tables a number of things. Do not feel like you have to take all of them if they're just going to go into your recycling at home. We'll keep them and reuse them. But if they are useful to you, please do take them. You have a print copy of the slides that are going to be up on the screen. In particular, when we get to the slides that have data on them, some dollar amounts and numbers are really hard to see on screens, even if you have really good eyes. So I imagine those will be helpful. You can see them closer. I am going to ask that we hold questions to the very end so we can make our way through. I've blocked out some time for questions. So feel free to make notes on those printouts and make sure you don't forget your good question as we're going along. You also have on your tables a copy of our trifold brochure for this year's commitment campaign, 2026 commitment campaign. I'm going to talk about that in just a little while. And you have our evergreen planned giving brochure. And planned giving is one of our topics for a few minutes from now. And Cindy Ferguson and Tom Jones will be taking us through that. So that's one that you may want to take home and hold for later. I'm so thankful that you all came tonight. Mark Stansel and I were just talking about how many people came tonight. And the very first time we did a community town hall after I got here, this is my fourth one at Trinity, in case anyone's counting. Fourth community-wide town hall. The first one we were packed. This entire room was packed. And of course, part of that I think was curiosity, right? What is she about and what is she going to say? And I think we were also in such a place of transition that there were concerns, right? There were even fears about where we were going to go as a community. And one of those fears was related to our financial health and whether we were going to have enough to do the things we needed to do in our community. So I take it as a real positive that 300 people are not so worried that they packed Williams Hall on a Thursday night. And the fact that we need to be people who talk openly and honestly about money will keep us having conversations like this, but we really are in quite a different place from where we were some years ago. So everything we're going to talk about tonight is really celebration. We are in solid financial health, on a very positive trajectory forward, and we also still have opportunity. And thanks be to God for that. What if there were nothing left to be done? That would be terrible. That would be something else, and not a good something else. So we come together really in such a positive spirit, and not with the pressure of scarcity. That isn't to say that we have money to waste. We're very careful stewards here, but we are not motivated by fear at this point in this church's life. I think in any of our areas of ministry, including in our financial health. I think if you all were here last week, who saw last week's worship live or live stream? Okay. You saw one of our regular, at least 4 times a year, new member classes lined up across the front of the church. And I mean across the whole front of the church. Kudos to Lucy Strong, who shepherds our visitors sometimes for years and years and years before they finally come to new member class and session dinner and join the church. But as you saw, we are growing, which is itself something to celebrate. And we are growing at every age demographic in the church, which is not the case for a lot of mainline churches. I don't say that to say we're better than other mainline churches, but I think that is one of our unique gifts, particularly in this moment, and something that we should be thinking about as an opportunity, that we are becoming even more intergenerational. We have appeal across age groups. And as we're planning financially, we have that in mind. We're planning for a programmatic church to meet those bigger needs and to meet the needs of lots of different age groups. I think that's a happy thing, but it is a different thing, right? Some churches are not planning at multiple levels, and we really have to plan at every single level. We still, as you'll see in a few minutes, have opportunity in terms of financial engagement. There's, of course, always upward opportunity in terms of dollars given, that people hopefully will continue to give additional dollars year over year. But we also still have a pretty good opportunity in front of us in terms of how many of our households in our church are consistently pledging and or, some people give without pledging or giving to our church. And if you read my letter, if you haven't yet, go home and read it. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because that'll maybe hurt my feelings. I named that in the letter. That is a growth point for us, that at some point in the future, I hope it would be amazing if 100% of our households participated in some way financially. There's no minimum dollar amount, right? But we are not there right now. We still have a good number of people who aren't doing that. I want to thank some folks. Lots of people helped make this event possible, including Mackenzie Atkinson, who had to step out. Lucy and Emily and Kevin Laxon worked really hard on PowerPoint is not my gift set. I can write and give data, but I cannot make it look like anything, and they made it look presentable. Heather pulled all kinds of information together to do this. Heather Edmiston, our very gifted, we call her the Minister of Finance around here. Her real title is what? Director of Finance and Administration. And thank you to Frank First, who's chair of the trustees, who's going to speak in a little bit, to Cindy and Tom, who are current trustees, who are going to talk about planned giving. I want to give a shout out to Bonnie Harris, commitment season guru.
That's my thing, baby. That's my thing.
Has undying energy for commitment season at this church, and all of those things come together. You will have noticed, if you did read my letter, that we don't have co-chairs this year, and that is a shift. Our scriptural theme lends itself to hearing more and more voices, but as you go through the next 4 Sundays of worship, you'll get to hear from some people in the worship space, and I want to thank them. Anna's here tonight. John and Anna Elliott are going to speak on Sunday. Thank you, Anna. The next week, Tom Adams Sr. and Tom Adams Jr. are going to speak together in worship. The Tom and Tom Show. Tell your friends it's worth the price of admission. Katie, Donald, Will, and Rennie Hauser are going to speak. They're, all jokes aside, have been visiting for 4 years and finally joined the church last Sunday. And then another wonderful, fairly recent new member couple in our church, Ren and Gretchen Henry, are going to speak. So thank you to those folks. I am going to invite you again to get some more food, but I'm going to turn to Heather for our first section. You see our agenda. We're going to talk about where we are, our current financial state and our health. Then we're going to talk about the trust. This may be review for some, but maybe you've never quite known how our trust works. planned giving. I'm going to talk some more about our 2026 commitment campaign. We'll look at some of the goals from last year, what's happened since, goals for next year, quick overview of the budgeting process, and then plenty of time for Q&A. I know that sounds like a lot, but it will flow pretty quickly. Heather, you ready? Madam Minister of Finance.
Let's see if I can figure out how to run the slides.
You want me to do it?
Other way?
There you go.
Okay, here we go. It's great to work at a place that is very transparent about finances. Someone in my position, it's nice to be somewhere where there's no spin, there's no, second book of records anywhere, that it's just like all out there. And what I want to also say is that the information we go over tonight is available in each monthly session packet. So it's there. You can find it on our website, and it's there for anyone's to look to see what our financial snapshot is on a month-to-month basis. And the great news, as Rebecca said, is we are in a strong financial position. We are blessed with strong resources and faithful stewardship. One of those things that assist in that is that there is no debt. We carry no debt. So our operating budget doesn't have to be burdened by making debt service payments every year. And that's a significant thing there. When you give to the church, you're not sending interest to a financial institution. Trinity has fully funded operational reserve. Our policy calls for us to have a reserve representing 3 months of budgeted expenses, and that has been fully funded for some time. And each year, when the budget increases, we top off those reserves there. Trinity's blessed with a property and a campus that are major missional assets. And this campus and this building that we enjoy is critical to serving the church's ministries. And it's imperative that the church plan to care for it over the long term with capital placement, replacement, and repair. The property committees and the finance committee are keenly aware of this and are diligently working to fully fund a capital expenditure reserve. One thing to know is that income and expenses, when we look at our income and expenses, is that the budget is driven primarily through the commitment campaigns, and pledges and regular giving from members represent 90% of the income that supports our budget there. That's a significant amount of the budget. The Finance Committee does not take a budget to session based on an estimate of giving. They take a budget to session based on your commitments, based on the committed giving there. So it's not kind of like a swag or a guess of what might be raised, but what people have committed to give to support this church. So commitment season is really important to us in formulating the budget. The remaining sources of income come from trust fund distributions, which Cindy will tell us a little bit more about later tonight. That represents about 5% of our operating budget this year, our support from the Trinity Trust Fund. Also from bank interest and building usage fees. So that's what other income is. And then in years where we may have unspent funds, where our income exceeds our expenses, decisions are made carefully and prayerfully by session about how to use them. And the operating, our unspent funds from the past several years have enabled us to fund mission projects beyond what was in the operating budget, such as additional impact grants or supporting more refugee relief than was planned for in the operating budget, or our Living Waters for the World project with Cuba church. It's enabled us to add hearing loops to the chapel. That came as a result of those unspent funds. It's also allowed us to renovate these bathrooms around the corner and to update the flooring in Building D and to paint the chapel rotunda and put carpet in the chapel parlor. So the unspent funds don't just sit in a bank account and go unused. They're not being, the operational reserves that I mentioned early, that's storing up for a rainy day. Those funds are being held in a responsible manner for any unexpected expenses or unexpected turns in giving. But if we do end up with extra funds at the end of the year, those are going to support the work and the mission of the church. Here is a snapshot at what our balance sheet for the church looked like at August 31st. And as you see, it's super simple. I mean, it's primarily cash in this building that we're in. Our little bit of liabilities are the credit card bills and any payroll taxes and stuff that we owe. That rolls through monthly there, and then our net assets without donor restrictions and then with donor restrictions. Those with donor restrictions are some of these reserves that we just mentioned is what primarily makes that up. Here is our statement of activities through August 31st, and I just chose to give you a glimpse at what 2024 and 2025 looked like comparatively. You'll see that through August, our revenues were just over $2.6 million, which is about $136,000 higher than the same period last year. The increase comes primarily from pledged giving, which is up $66,000, and non-pledged giving, which is up $86,000. And that's a sign of both strong commitments and new or unexpected gifts. Trust fund income on this sheet, it looks lower than last year, but that's just a factor of the timing of the draw. The trust has promised to the operating budget around $210,000 for 2025. As of today, we've now drawn $157,000 from the trust fund to fund our operations so far. Other income is lower than last year, and that's primarily a factor of interest income there. Our interest income has gone down because we haven't had as big of a cash position because we've been renovating bathrooms and funding refugee relief instead of holding on to that cash there. So overall, the revenue story is very positive. And on the expense side, we've spent about $2.49 million, which is $145,000 more than this time last year. And our largest expense category remains personnel, which supports our pastors and program staff and operations team and everybody who keeps this church running. Church is a function of people so much of the time, so it's natural that the personnel budget be one of the primary categories. Property costs are also significant, which reflects both ongoing maintenance and the size of this campus. And then mission spending is up about $43,000 over last year, which reflects Trinity's strong commitment to outreach. Some areas are up slightly, like children and families and communications and tech, while others are down, like youth and families. And I'll just point out there that that's because we're kind of on a rotation. Last year we had the international trip. This year we don't have the international trip, so there's not quite as much. It's really, if you dig into the numbers a bit, you'll find it's really up just slightly this year. So the other is property looks like it's down, but last year we had immense renovation expenses that went through there. It's really about even this year. So when you look at the revenues and expenses together, we have a net increase of assets of around $125,000 through August, a healthy sign that means that we're living within our means and we're growing reserves, and reserves that are being used in a meaningful way. Compared to last year, the overall net increase is slightly smaller, but still positive. In my mind, I'd love to see it where we where our net increase is 0. It means we're getting exactly what we hope to get, and we're using every single dollar of it there. So just in summary, Trinity's financial foundation is strong, we're debt-free, and we're mission-focused. And the commitment and generosity of you, our members, allows us to sustain these vibrant ministries now and into our future. And I'll welcome Frank up to talk to us about the Trinity Trust.
Good job. Good job.
Oh, you want to try that? Thank you. Too many things to do at one time. Heather has me nervous because she said not to eat before I come to talk because I might be up here with food in my teeth. So if I have any, forgive me. I'm going to give you a little bit of background about the trust, and then we're going to look at some numbers so you understand how it contributes to the church, and then Cindy and Tom are going to talk about planned giving. The trust was actually created in 1960 with the intent of letting people contribute monetarily to the church in a way that would enhance the long-term life and mission of Trinity Church and the Presbyterian USA congregation that we belong to. There are 7 trustees. You see them listed here. Each trustee serves for a term of 7 years. We have 3 main responsibilities. The first one is to make sure that the trust funds are invested wisely and safely. We do that in conjunction with an investment committee that advises us, and I think most of the investment committee people are here, Mark and John and Richard, maybe not. You'll see in a moment what a good job they're doing. And they do this without any fee, so it's a significant contribution to our efforts. Our second responsibility is to make sure that the funds in the trust are distributed in ways that conform to the intent of the donors. So every request that comes into the trust, we make sure that that happens. And then finally, it's our job to encourage giving and contribute to the growth of the trust above and beyond what it earns in the investments. Okay. If you'll notice, we've got a bunch of different funds in the trust. The top one, the general fund, is the fund that contributes or throws off the money that contributes to the operating budget that Heather was talking about. So we target 4% of the assets from that fund distributed quarterly, and that is what comes to the $210,000 that we'll see in this year's budget. There are 11 other designated funds, and the proceeds or the distributions from these funds do not show up in the operating budget. They support other things, such as our speaker coming in a few weeks, Valerie Kaur. Her fee is funded by the Cottrell Lecture Fund. Each of these funds has a specific purpose. And again, our mission is to make sure that the funds are used in the way that the donors originally specified. We target about 4% to be distributed every year, and that's based on a backward-looking 12-month average. If you go on forward again. And as I said, it's a combination of distributions from the general fund and the designated fund. So you'll see the distributions don't always add up to exactly 4%. There's a little lumpiness in the way we distribute funds from the designated funds, but that 4% in the operating, that goes into the operating budget is fixed and given out quarterly. You'll also notice the gain and loss line. We've had tremendous return in the trust over the last 3 years. It's about 14% average. And over the long-term life of the trust, it's about 7%, I think. 7.3% over the last 10 years. So we're doing really well currently, and hats off to our investment committee, which has helped us do that. Do I have anything else? Okay.
Good job, Brenda.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. I am very happy to be here tonight to talk a little bit about our planned giving efforts here at Trinity. And I want to thank Rebecca and Frank for giving us a slide on the program tonight. Cindy and I will make a relatively brief presentation, under 45 minutes to be sure. Let's start out and talk maybe about a definition of planned giving. There are lots of them out there. You can Google the concept and get various definitions, but I've got one that I like to just throw out to you for your consideration and maybe stimulate some thinking on the topic. So this is my kind of idiosyncratic definition of planned giving. It's one that it's a gift that's significant to the donor or giver. It's over and above the person's annual commitment or contribution to the Trinity annual budget, and it's a gift that's made with joy. So I think those three are pretty important components. A significant gift to the donor, a gift that's over and above their annual gift to the Trinity operating budget, and a gift made with joy. So the first component, how do you judge a significant gift from the donor's perspective? I think it's fair to say that the gift ought to be a little bit of a stretch financially for the individual, for the donor personally, but still one that's right for you in the context of your financial circumstances, your family situation, as to timing and as to amount. I think the gift should also have a purpose that fits with your kind of vision and hope for Trinity, what you're trying to accomplish. So under the first criteria for an appropriate planned gift, I'd say it should be significant in relation to the circumstances and intention of the giver. Second, it should be over and above your annual commitment to Trinity's operating budget, because if it detracts from that, if it takes away from that, it's self-defeating and counterproductive. I don't think I need to argue that point too much. I do think, though, that it's true that a person who actively considers, prayerfully and actively considers a planned gift to Trinity is probably actually going to be more committed and more focused on the needs of Trinity on the annual basis, and probably will be more of a contributor there. Can't prove that, but I think my gut tells me that that's true. The third criteria, I think, is the best one, and that is, does the gift give you joy? Is it a gift that gives you joy? Well, that's kind of a selfish motivation, you might say, but I don't really think that's true. I think of the woman in the temple that Jesus observed giving her last mite for the benefit of the poor. And to me, I think as I visualize her, a lot of portrayals of that woman don't reflect this, but as I visualize her, she's got a shining face and kind of a subtle Mona Lisa smile on her face. So I'm going to stand by that against all facts to the contrary. So there's nothing wrong with taking personal satisfaction when making your planned gift. In fact, if there's no joy in the gift, there's something fundamentally missing. You can see the slide here making a few points about the mechanics, the types of planned gifts, and that sort of thing. I'm not going to get into much detail on that tonight. I will say that the gift can be structured as a lifetime gift. You can make it now. You can make it as a lump sum. You can make it in installments. You can defer it. You can put it in your will. You can even defer it. Oftentimes this is done to the death of the second spouse if it's a married couple, so that you're not impinging on the financial security of the surviving spouse. It's going to be different for every situation, obviously. We'll be happy, Cindy and I and others at the church, Heather, Rebecca, all the trustees will be happy to answer questions that you've got on any individual issues or questions or concerns to the best of our ability. We're not engaged in this effort as professional advisors, although some of us have some professional training, but that's not our role here. Our role is to support you, to support your own advisors in trying to frame a gift that fits with your financial and your estate planning situation, taking into account tax ramifications and the like. I think the thing that's most exciting to me is the opportunity for Cindy and I and the trustees and others that will participate with us to have really substantive conversations with as many of you as possible in the church. It really comes down to that sort of dialogue. We want to engage with you at a time and in a manner that works for you. And as I said, Rebecca and her staff, Heather and others, are excited to participate in that process. So to me, what's going to judge the success of what we are about here is the number, the quantity really of meaningful, and I underline meaningful, conversations and interactions that we have. Interactions that support, that inform, and hopefully even inspire action. So I'll leave you with this fact, and that is that no member is too old, thank goodness. No member is too young, none too rich, and none too poor to make a contribution through plan giving at Trinity to make God's love visible. So Cindy's going to give us a little more background on, I did want to say one thing. We think that at the end of the day, the best probable recipient for most plan gifts is going to be our general fund, and you can see how that works. I think Cindy's going to give us some information there.
Thank you, Tom. Hi, everybody. I feel like I'm going to be preaching to the choir in this room, literally. I know pretty much the list of those who have already made a planned gift, and many of you are in the room, and you can be really good advocates for others. We've got peers in here with young adult children. I think most of the folks who are giving already made an intentional effort to let us know that they have Trinity in their planned giving. I don't think there's many under 50, and I think we have an opportunity to educate a younger generation so that they are hearing about planned giving and beginning to understand what it means and how they might incorporate it in how they think about Trinity. So now that we've heard Frank talk about the trust, and we've heard Heather talk about the finances, and now Tom's shared a little bit about what planned giving really is, I'm going to take a few minutes to highlight just how significant an impact planned gifts made to Trinity have on our actual mission and ministries at the church. So I'm going to kind of dumb it down a little bit, and it's the way it helps me recognize how the numbers correlate between what the trust throws off to the budget and what then that dollar amount lets us do at Trinity. We can all appreciate that having a trust fund that generates income to the operating budget is really beneficial. But I'm going to share a few numbers with you that I hope will help kind of hit home how valuable the planned gifts actually are. So Heather and Kevin, I know you pulled numbers, and Kevin put together a nice chart. We'll take a look at the chart. And this reflects the actual dollar amounts that the general fund, that's the one that Frank told you, it's the biggest fund with the least restrictions that we take a 4% draw from each year, and that income then goes into the income we can use in our operating budget. So you can see on this chart that back in 2019, the size of the general fund, 4% of that for that year was $98,000, and that went to the budget. But as you look back over the last 6 years and see where we are today for 2025, that number has more than doubled. And that is a reflection of gifts made to the general fund that are allowing us to do a lot of wonderful things here at Trinity. So if you don't mind, we're going to skip back and look at a couple numbers from the statement of activities. All right, so if you look right there in the middle and you see the mission dollar amount that we've spent this year through August, it's $279,000. If we didn't have that 210 that's getting used in this area, we'd have a lot less money that we could put toward our mission expenses. If you look at those line items above mission, so our ministry to congregation, children and families, youth and families, adults, worship and music. Okay, now I added these. You're going to have to trust me on this number. I did use a calculator, But the totals of those expenses through August are about $151,000. So if you think about that $210,000 coming from the general fund, it has covered that and will cover a few more months of a couple of those. So I think that that is significant in how we can look at just how meaningful the money from that general fund is to what we do in the life of our church to live out the mission and the ministries that we think we should be living out. It's a simplistic way of looking at the numbers, but it's helpful to me, so maybe for some of you as well. So if you have not yet made an intentional effort to consider planned giving for Trinity, we hope that you will. You might hear from us if you haven't, because we just want to make sure you know what the different options are and how you might do that. So many of our gifts come when someone has passed, but we do have folks who have made lifetime gifts. And I know some people who have done that, and the joy that Tom talked about is really evident when you see your lifetime gift at work in the life of the church that you're currently enjoying living in. So keep that in mind too. It doesn't have to just be a gift that comes out of your will. So prayerfully consider entertaining planned giving, and we hope to have some of those really joyful conversations with you. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for your knowledge, and my goodness, we are exactly on the money on the time, so well done. As you see, if you remember last year's commitment campaign design, does anyone remember what it looked like? Lucy, raise your hand. Thank you, Lucy. Martha, co-chair, very familiar with the design. This may seem like a small thing, but something that we're doing intentionally is branding commitment so that this has a predictable, memorable look. This is part of a bigger effort to make this really a well-used muscle in our church, that we are expecting that commitment season is going to come every year. And so when we get to October, and it really is just going to be the month of October, no one in the church goes, "What are you talking about? We don't know what you're talking about." This is going to be a familiar pattern that for the month of October, it is commitment season at Trinity. It's going to look generally like this with a beautiful dark green background, coincidentally the color of money, but we didn't necessarily pick it for that reason. This design intentionally brings to mind growth and life and living things, but also this brass plaque kind of harkens to our steadfastness, right? We are a church that stands and will continue to stand. So I wanted to highlight that fact and lift up the fact that in the last few years, we have been steadily shifting the way we do commitment and budgeting to the point that now we have a pretty fixed rhythm on commitment and budgeting. The month of October is going to be the public-facing commitment season. That will include 4 Sundays where we will talk about commitment during worship. We'll have speakers. The sermon series will touch on commitment. In the last Sunday of our commitment season, which we conveniently call Commitment Sunday. Come on, y'all. Thanks, Joel. We're going to have a fantastic video that's going to lift up a lot of the voices of our congregation. And I'm just going to go ahead and let you know we are going to use the screens in the sanctuary to watch the video. So, whew. Yes, exactly. Write down the names of everyone who clapped. Yes, we're going to use the screens so that we can hear from many of the wonderfully generous voices in our congregation about commitment. And then at the same time that we're using October as our public-facing time for pledging, we're also planning for the budget. I know in the past that has looked different, but now this will be our really third, but second fully cycle of doing it this way. Our ministry committees within our sessions work are all currently working on draft budgets. Some are already done because they met last night. Mission has a draft budget already for 2026. A+ Mission. Worship and Music did a draft budget last night. So we are building a draft budget. It'll go to Heather by the end of October, so that then in November, as we have clarity about how much people have pledged, we can then do some of our other revenue projections for the other sources of revenue. By the end of November session, we'll be able to do a first read on a draft budget, and January session will adopt a budget. Yes. We did it this past year, or this year. We did it for 2025, and we're just going to keep doing that. It's the right financial pattern. It's the right predictability for our staff and our lay leaders to be able to know what resources are available and to go use them. Heather made the really important point that we're not raising money to sit on money. We're raising money to do the things God's calling us to do. And this streamlining is also really important for not wearing everybody out, asking for money, and using an appropriate amount of staff and volunteer time to get us through commitment. So that commitment is not, while Bonnie has boundless energy, commitment is not something that ends up feeling like a drain, right? I'm so glad Tom made the point that giving is a joyful exercise. At the heart of all of our giving is our gratitude for what we have been given. And if gratitude is what is motivating us, it feels wonderful to give. So shortening this to a predictable length that'll come at the same time every year certainly makes it easier to feel joyful about it than if you feel like we've been hearing about it for 6 or 8 months and we're all worn out, right? So we're going to continue to use this look for several years until we get tired of it. And this will sort of just build expectations among us. Heather, would you click me forward one? I want to run through some data points that we started sharing a few years ago. And so these are the same data, but updated for this year. And again, if y'all have questions, jot them down. I'll take them at the end. Looking back for what was pledged for 2025, we received pledges for $4,040,610. And you saw when Heather presented the pledged versus unpledged income, we also saw an increase in unpledged income. So some of that is because people were new and they came and started giving without having made a pledge. Some of that is because people didn't pledge, but then still gave. And that's okay. We ultimately would prefer for everybody to pledge so that we have as much information as possible as we're building the budget, but I want to celebrate that within that condensed timeline, we still received pledges for over $4 million. The goal last year was $4 million, so significantly over it. That represented 470 adult pledges. When I started, I mentioned that we still have room to grow in how many of our households are pledging. That is not our total number of households, but 470 is an increase over the number of pledges we received for the year before. I also want to celebrate that 2 years ago, we started having a separate pledge card for kids and youth, and we got a bunch of great pledges from our kids and our youth, because y'all, our kids are so thoughtful and smart and funny. And some of them, teenagers in particular, who have jobs where they earn some money, they thought very hard about how much they could give to their church. And we have at least 2 teenagers I know of who tithed from what they were earning in their teenage jobs.
Was their last name Lamont?
No. No, but that was hilarious. I did make the Lamont children pledge, but they were not earning any money of their own at that point. No, there were 2 teenagers who had regular jobs. One was working at Chick-fil-A at the time, I happen to know, and they tithed. And I mean, I almost want to ask them to speak in worship to remind our adults that actually the Bible has a lot to say about how much we give and where it comes from, and first fruits and a tithe are biblical ideas. So just if you're wondering, if you're looking for a percentage, that percentage is 10 from your gross. 10% from your gross. We also got, yeah, that didn't get any laughs. Or claps, no claps. We also got one hilarious pledge card from a child who absolutely was committing her parents' money. It was hilarious. And we got from our kids and youth very thoughtful and meaningful commitments of their talents and their time and how they would be here and participate and what they know that they can bring to our community and what they're good at. It was also a way for them to celebrate what they're good at and celebrate each other and how they're going to show up and participate. Coming to youth group and coming to movie night and going through confirmation. It was beautiful to see our kids step up and make their own commitments with their own voices. And we're going to do that again this year. We have a pledge card that'll go out for our young people. Every year, all of this is against the backdrop of how many people we actually have. So as of the end of 2024, we had 1,662 total active members. That does not include children. So that includes everybody who's been through confirmation and up. In addition to that number, we have about 300 kids, non-confirmed kids. So when people ask me how big Trinity is, I say 2,000 humans is about where we are of different ages. A couple of years ago, someone asked me to be very frank. Someone's name was Jim Blitch, who's sitting right over there, about how much it costs to run Trinity if we break it down by member. Now, I don't know if these numbers are helpful to you all, but I think sometimes getting concrete is what helps us feel inspired. And I appreciate that Cindy connected back the distribution from the general fund and the trust to real numbers in our budget. Well, if we break down our budget by our membership, it's $2,739 per member, or per family, it's about $4,500. So those are really helpful benchmarks for what it takes to just keep this going. And I will say we're very careful about how we keep this going. So the building, parts of the building that we're not in right now, they're not being air conditioned and the lights are off. But it still costs, obviously, a lot of money to staff this place, to keep it up. We're not keeping it up in a fancy way, but we want it to run well and we want it to look presentable and nice. And when you break that down, that's what it looks like to actually keep Trinity going on an annual basis. We have mailed hard copy commitment packets out already. They'll hit your mailbox at some point in the next couple of days, hopefully. So if you haven't already used a digital pledge card, there's a link in your email, and we would love for you to. But if you like a hard copy pledge card, you have one coming your way with a letter or return envelope and a copy of that brochure. We mailed 850 of them. I want to talk about that number just a little bit because that's not our number of member households. We have quite a few people who are either, we're going to find out through this mailer, that they are not actually intending to still be on our roll, which will help us clean the roll a little bit. And we have quite a lot of people who are in the age bracket from, say, 22 to 40, whose data we need to update. We've known this for a while. We've been doing a lot of background work on it. But they're either out on their own or they're somewhere on their way to being out on their own. So that's our true number of households plus a whole bunch of young adults who are somewhere in their early launch phase of life. And the reason we go ahead and mail to them, 2 reasons. Well, why would we go ahead and mail to them? What'd you say? They're members, yes, 100%, Mark Stansel. We don't want to assume that just because somebody's 28 that they're not going to care to support their church, because guess what? Many of them do. The other reason is, any guesses? It helps us find out who's really here, right? Who's coming? Whose address do we need to change? This is one of the tools we can then use to keep our rolls clean and our database clean. Last data point, people often want to know, what is our per capita? This is the amount of money we pay per member. It's actually shared in part by the Presbytery of Greater Atlanta and in part by the PCOSA. So the total for us of those two organizations is $32.76 per member. So our per capita will be it's a little under $50,000. What is it? 58 something. Heather, good job. All right. Will you click me forward one, Heather? Thank you. I want to do a quick run through of some of the goals because we, in the last couple of years, have been very intentional about saying why we need the money, right? It's not motivating to just say, give more and hope people do. We want people to know what we're doing and to feel a part of it. And two, if we actually need more money, we have to say what that is. So the goals that were part of our last year's campaign included hiring a director of wellness and recreation ministries. We have done that. That ministry is still pretty new. It's having some early successes, and we've learned some things about how we need to structure wellness and rec, so it will continue to grow, hopefully. We asked to increase the impact grant budget, which has happened, and our mission council does such a careful, faithful job of considering applications from community organizations and making grants outward. We've increased our support of our longtime mission partners, which is a different thing from our grant recipients. And we have really opened our campus so that our partners and other community organizations have a place to be. Heather mentioned that this entire property is a missional asset. Obviously, we gather here often and for lots of reasons, but there are other organizations who don't have anywhere to be, and it isn't the highest and best use of their limited resources to rent a space. So we are able to host them and give them a gathering place, often at very little cost to us, in a way that really is an extension of our missional priorities. We added a lot of wonderful children's materials to our sanctuary. If you haven't noticed, we have worship bags. John's smiling because I know his grandkids love a worship bag. We have worship bags that are replenished regularly with new things for kids to be doing while they're in the worship space. And we have children's Bibles in the pews that hit at two different reading levels. So there's one that's a mostly picture Bible, and there's one for kids who are reading. So they can read along if they want, or they can just read that the whole time. That's okay. We have expanded our band at 9 a.m. We have a few people in here who are regular 9 a.m. worshipers. We added a member to that band and did some investing in that space to really mark it as a worship space. It still is a multi-purpose space, but it needed some sacred furnishings. We also added a regular chapel Vespers service. Who's been to Vespers? Yeah, it's a very different, more contemplative. There's more silence. There's a lot of music, usually not preaching, but scripture reading in the chapel about once per month on a Sunday night. This feels like a long time ago now, but we moved to Realm, thanks be to God. We completed the migration to a new database. We also entered into a relationship with a graphic designer named Amelia Simmons, who's on contract. Our session has been through a process doing some strategic planning around adult education and expanding our budget for honoraria. And we did a whole bunch more renovations. You see them there, the 5 Points restrooms, the staff restrooms upstairs. We carpeted and painted the rotunda upstairs above the chapel. Both the parlors have been updated and look wonderful. The bride and groom's rooms, the manse looks fantastic. HVAC. HVAC. It's working, feels good in here. And as Heather mentioned, one of the priorities on the property side has simply been to do a better job budgeting to real maintenance needs and not deferring maintenance to the point that every 10 years or so we have to have a capital campaign for deferred maintenance. Y'all know that's hard money to raise for HVACs. We also expanded the position for pastor for congregational care from part-time to full-time. So it's in the budget for a partial year for 2025. So whenever that APNC is ready, Margaret Reiser, we have money to pay that person. We're excited about that. Okay, Heather, one more, sorry. Now, looking at this year's campaign, you saw the name there is the race before us, and our inspiring scripture is Hebrews 12, 1 through 2. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, that's one of my favorite images in scripture, so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith, who for the sake of the joy that was set before him endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. The word of the Lord. What do y'all notice about that scripture? What does it call to mind for you? What did you say? A race. Thank you, Eleanor. Yes, that word's in there. There's somewhere we're headed. There's a trajectory. There's a path in front of us. What else? Next year, we're going to just call this Bible study, and then more people will come. Joy, 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 joy. Cindy.
I think of that cloud of witnesses as having a lot of people who made planned gifts. Does anybody else think?
The cloud of witnesses were planned givers.
Right, they're looking ahead for the rest of us.
Not wrong. Absolutely. The cloud of witnesses is this wonderful image of people who are maybe some from our past who have given us gifts that positioned us, maybe some who are around us right now, encouraging and supporting and challenging. Yes. What else? Margaret?
It makes me think of my father.
Makes you think of your father.
This was one of his favorite verses.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Think of the acolytes. They are a part of our cloud of witnesses.
yes.
The joy and participation of everyone in this church.
Yeah. Could y'all hear Bonnie? She was thinking about our acolytes and how there's joy and participation at every age level in our church. This is one of my favorite passages in Scripture. We're going to preach on it for 4 weeks, these 2 verses, but I promise there's plenty here for 4 sermons. Because this, to me, connects our past and our present and does not let us stay here, but absolutely drives us forward into the future, right? And churches, as y'all are well aware, can sometimes get stuck in one of those places. Sometimes looking backward or sometimes stymied in the present and not sure where to go. And this scripture, 1, takes the pressure off because who has set the path in front of us? God, thank you, not us. There is a path in front of us, and we have before us a model. The other thing that I really love about this image is that we are running together, right? There's wonderful energy when we think about being on the same path all together. So this year's theme is really not just about money, as they really never are. It's about the fact that our financial commitments help us build on what has come before, fund what is needed now, and let us prepare for what's coming in the future. So this is our theme for this year. I'm going to talk you through a little bit of the goals, and then we'll open for questions. One more, Heather. Thank you. Last year's goal was $4 million, and we raised just shy of $4,050,000. So this is a pretty modest increase in goal compared to some of the jumps we've taken in the last few years. The goal is $4,150,000, and I think that's reachable. Y'all too? Yes. I would love a little more excitement about that answer. And I'm happy to say that along with our other sources of revenue, it's also enough. So one of the things that we don't need to do is just pick a giant goal and hope we get there if we don't really need that much money. So this is what we need for 2026. And here's why. So I have here big buckets of our ministry areas and about the total percentage they represent in the 2025 budget, and then some of what we're hoping to be able to do with that modest increase. So mission and outreach in 2025 is about 19% of our overall budget. But we have wonderful energy and excitement coming out of our mission area and session, and so many people in the congregation involved in Faith in Action, a really excited creation care team, some of whom are in the room. Esther Stokes is raising the roof, and I love to see it. John Shepard's also on creation care. Anybody else who's in here right now? They're ready to go, help us do some other stuff. And we have some very concrete needs and goals for supporting our existing mission partners, both here and our global partners. Care, education, and connection engagement are about 22% of this year's budget. The only additional position that I'm planning to try to add to our organizational chart is a full-time staff person to support education and spiritual formation. That person may or may not be a pastor. We'll have to structure that search in a way that lets us see who's in the market for that position. That would hold adult ed as we have known it, but also recognizes that we need a lot more different types of formats and learning and just in life these days, right? We have good participation on Sunday mornings, but not everyone learns best in a class format. Not everyone comes at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And we have all these new members who need to be connected to small group opportunities and study opportunities. We're going to increase our funding for congregational care ministries, particularly as we're calling a new pastor. That person will then have more resources at his or her disposal. And one of my great hopes is that we'll be able to pilot and then hopefully eventually host a regular respite care opportunity. Do you all know about respite care? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yes, some nods. Just quickly, and I'll say more about this as we get closer to it becoming a reality for us. This is a model that allows people, particularly who have memory challenges, to have the opportunity to gather for community and fellowship and activity and to be together, and for them to have a break from their caregivers and for their caregivers to have a break from them. So there is respite in both directions. And I know some of you have loved ones and some of you are actually caregiving for people with memory challenges. And as that sort of experience takes hold, it can be very isolating. It can be very isolating for the person who's experiencing memory change and for their loved ones. It can also mean that sometimes people stop doing or even feeling as if they belong in the spaces and groups where they have participated. So creating one that reinforces that, oh, you do belong. You are needed and loved in this community, and you do have fellowship and friends is a really important ministry. There's a pretty extensive program that Respite Care Atlanta runs in Second Ponce's space, and our team has gone and already learned a lot from them. And Heather and I are going to Birmingham next week to meet with some churches who are doing it in a really different way. So that's a pretty big picture goal. It'll take some space considerations, it'll take some staffing considerations, it'll take some volunteers, but would be a beautiful expression of care ministries. Worship and music is only about 17% of our budget because it's mostly people. Worship doesn't cost a lot in program dollars. And with chapel worship so popular and longed for in our congregation, we're also now trying to rebuild I wouldn't call it a full concert calendar, but more music offerings in our chapel in 2026. Campus maintenance and security are about a quarter of our budget. We have to continue to add security. I'm sorry to say, you all watch the news and you've seen what's happened in churches even in the last week. We added quite a good bit of security equipment as part of the infrastructure campaign, and already there's the need for additional security. And then I mentioned maintenance without deferrals. And then just really continuing on with administration, finance, communications, and tech, which are about 17% of our overall budget. That is it. How did we do? Ooh, I'm late. I was too long. Sorry, guys. Oh, no, wait. What questions do you have? What do you want to talk about? Bonnie.
Just as a point of clarification, just to make sure, so on this, whichever slide it was where you said 470 households gave, but, pledged for 2025, and then the next line says 1,662 total active members. So the 470, a lot of those are individuals, but a lot of those are also family unit, which typically is of 2 people. Right. So it would be interesting, I think, for this group to hear what are the number that do not make a pledge or a gift, which is daunting a little.
The true zeros, don't give or pledge. Oh, I wish I'd pulled that. I would say it's probably 200 individuals.
At least.
Higher, you think it's 3? 250. So break that into households, it's not quite 250, but probably 250 adult individuals. Yeah, Debbie. That's adult members. So we pull youth out of that so that they're not getting counted as part of that denominator. So that would be what you think of as like grown-up active members.
So there's room for inspiration.
Room for inspiration.
Church family.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Debbie.
I think a long time ago, we had a trust fund for music, Adele Cohen something or another, maybe?
We have
McKee.
it. The Adele McKee Fund is still very well funded. It's just not in the trust. It's a restricted fund that's in the operating side, so it's held by the church. And it has, do you know the number off the top of your head? About $250,000 in it, and receives gifts all the time.
Thank
So
you.
Norman uses it for projects that are not contemplated by the operating budget, mostly for musicians, mostly for brass players and chamber players.
Rebecca,
Yeah, John.
I was pleased to see they took down the glass at the Welcome Center, which I didn't find very welcoming. Is there anything more going to happen in that space?
You didn't like that? Plexiglass where you had to slide your money order into the hole? Yes, but not immediately. So there are developing plans in place to rework the entire flow of the Welcome Center, but it is not, dollar-wise, it's not a project we're going to be able to do out of operating money. It's going to have to be either a separate campaign or part of a capital campaign. So a couple of things, well, let me put it as a question, and John, you can answer first. What are the deficiencies in our Welcome Center?
It's in the wrong place.
Now that I can't change.
It's the farthest part, it's the farthest place from everything else in the church.
It is far from a lot of other things in the church, although during the week, that is where all of the action is. That's where everybody's coming and going because we have so many kids we have about 200 kids on campus every weekday. But within that footprint, which is what it is, what are needs you all already know about? Cindy?
I feel like it would be a lot more welcoming if the person sitting behind the desk was facing out.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so it was set up in this sort of awkward configuration with the person who's manning that space not looking at the people who are coming in. So reconfiguring, I mean, you all go into buildings all the time. You walk in and there's a person who says hello to you and can see you, and there are usually check-in processes these days because of the dangers of the world we live in. It's also our primary entry point for all the weekdays, and it does not have multi-stall restrooms. So when people come in here for anything, almost all the time, they need to go to the restroom pretty quickly, and we almost always have to send them all the way up through what I call the ramp room to the 5 Points restrooms. And from that location, you can't see where you're going. So, if you're giving someone directions, it is so much better if you can say, see that, you're going to go there and then turn. But that's beyond the line of sight, so it's not even easy to invite people there. We've had a lot of requests also from parents who bring the littles for choir about using that space, particularly while the children are in choir. So yes is the answer, that we would reconfigure that space to create better welcome, visibility, better security, access to restrooms, and a really more family-friendly space in proximity to the play place. Jim?
This is a very question-heavy table over here.
I know, seriously.
The mic can go wherever y'all want.
The campus has never looked better, and thank you and your team for everything y'all do. It's amazing. I just wanted to put in a tiny plug. I said this to a few people here and there. Just outside of this room is a beautiful courtyard that is used maybe twice a year. Mm-hmm. It's probably one of our most beautiful spaces. It's just never used. And if we're looking to make an improvement, down at the end, we could put a little open air covered outdoor stage. That would be a wonderful place for a bluegrass band and for all sorts of other things. I'm always thinking about Joel, but that wouldn't be a major expense when you compare it to bathrooms.
I can't wait to tell Joel you want to build him a party porch.
Always thinking about Joel, not you, Rebecca.
Fair.
One other quick comment. Realm is amazing. And I know that was your choice, and we're waiting on you to figure that out. But it seems like a gift to understanding our data and making people connect with the church in an easy way.
Well, I really don't get credit for that Realm thing at all. People much more knowledgeable and smarter than me did all the diligence to research it and vet it, and then actually did all the work of migrating our data, which had to be cleaned before it was migrated and then still has to be maintained all the time. That comment is timely, though, because one of the things that's coming up this fall is sort of the next iteration of trying to get people to subscribe to Realm and to get used to checking their own contact information and making sure it's up to date, or telling us, and Janet Martin can do it, and adding pictures. I know y'all want pictures. I do too. We need pictures. And Realm makes it really easy to put your own picture there so that we don't have to do one of those Olin Mills things where you have to come, for your 7-minute window. Yeah. Joel. Does Olin Mills still exist?
The other Joel. Speaking of pictures, is there any way, and I know that the policy, procedure, whatever it is, as soon as someone has announced that they've passed, their picture is gone. We have no idea who that is. Like, because we're in the choir and we just recognize faces. We don't know names. Is there any way you can wait a week before you pull it off? Please?
Yes. Yes.
Can we put their picture with the announcement?
Yes. That'd be best.
We.
First, you have to take a picture and put it on.
Yeah.
Well, there are people with pictures and it's like, but the picture's gone.
Yeah, so actually, so many people have commented on this. You're not alone, that was a source of frustration. And now Janet is going to wait 2 weeks after a death announcement before pulling somebody off. So when you get that email, do go then and look, because they will get moved, basically just to ensure that we don't unintentionally send communications to people in our community who have died. The picture thing is another thing that people ask about a lot, and it is tricky to do that consistently to the same level of quality. So we just have not done it, is really the answer. And I know everyone would like to see it, but we don't have good or recent pictures for a lot of our folks, and we certainly don't. Well, we don't have high quality ones. So when we've tested it out and put them into email, they've gotten grainy and pixelated, and we certainly don't want to seem disrespectful that we're sending out a bad picture. But if we had really great pictures of everybody, we could rethink it.
And Kevin and I were just talking, the best thing, Kevin Laxon coming back on staff. We were today at 2:00, Emily, Kevin, and I were talking about when our next picture-taking day might be. The Olin Mills of the future is just Kevin Laxon.
Kevin Laxon. What a talented guy. What other questions do y'all have? Any about money? No? Money's in good shape. Yep, that's true. That is true. Okay, well, thank you all for coming, and we live streamed tonight and recorded, so we'll make this available. And if you know of anybody who has questions, please feel free to be ambassadors for all of this or send them our way. We truly are happy to take questions all the time. And y'all are the best. Thank you in advance for your commitments. Make a pledge. We are live. Oh, I forgot to announce this, Bonnie. Thank you. Hang on, y'all, 1 second. I forgot to announce where we already are as of day 2 of the campaign. I had this number with me the whole time, and I forgot to share it. As of this afternoon, we had received 40 pledges for 2026, totaling $710,000. So, a good start.